Welcome, and Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Thank you. And I'm hoping you'll be able to see this in a moment, if not now. And here we are. So, of course, we're doing Torah Temimah, and we're actually on to chapter 2 of Bereshit. There's a tremendous amount of material to get through here. So, I mean, just for an example, there's the Rashi on this, and this is the Torah Temimah on it. So you can see, no wonder it's just taking us more, but we are definitely going into greater depth as to understanding this text. So this verse, I'll go back just a teeny bit, right here. Ve'ed ya'aleh, and a mist would rise up, min haaretz, from the land, v'hishka et kol pnei, and would water the entire surface, ha'adama, of the earth. And I need to go on a little bit so we'll understand where he's coming from. So next verse, look at the next verse. Vayitzer Hashem Elokim et ha'adam, and the Lord God formed. It's like a potter. It's a verb that's used to form a clay vessel. So the Lord God formed ha'adam, the man, afar min ha'adama, dust of the earth. Vayipach ba'apo, and he blew into his nostrils nishmat chayim, the breath of life. Vayi adam lenefesh chaya, and the man became a living creature. So let's go on a little bit more, and now it talks about Vayita Hashem Elohim gan ba'eden mikedim, and the Lord God planted a garden in Eden from above. Now, what preceded this verse? These verses was the fact that no plants had actually sprouted, right? That's what we were reading, okay? So this is the verse that precedes the one, right? There was Terem Ba'aretz, and this was before any plant of the field or shoot of the field was in the land, or any grass of the field, etc., before it was able to grow. Why? Ki lo himtir Hashem Elokim al haaretz, for the Lord God had not caused rain to fall on the land, and all the Adam ein la'avodat hatna, and there was no man to work the land, so the earth. So we see that there's a combination both of rainfall, the necessity for water, and also for an individual, for human beings to actually cultivate the land. So there's this sensitivity that the commentary is going to pick up. So let's go back here. Let's make sure I have the right place here. Ve'ed ya'aleh, right? And a mist would go up. Tanya, it is taught, this would refer to a fairly early source. As you know, there are these words that are technical words that identify the nature of the source, where it comes from, whether it's from Babylonia or from Eretz Yisrael, and how early. Tanya would mean preceding the year 200. And not found, this is not necessarily in the Mishnah. Adam Harishon Damo Shel Olam. So this is now speaking in a highly metaphoric way. It says the first man was the blood of the earth, or the blood of the world. I suppose I should translate it, right? The blood of the world. Shenemar, as it states, ve'ed ya'aleh min haaretz, as it says, a mist went up from the land. There's a commentary here, so we'll take a quick look at it, because it isn't so simple to understand what just was stated. So, near air. It would appear, Disamich Asefa Dakra, that this idea is based on the end of the scriptural verse, Vehemshech haktuvim. And not only that, the continuation of the verses, in other words, the next verse, which we took a look at. Ve'ed ya'aleh min haaretz. So it says here, of course, that a mist would go up from the land, v'hishka, and it would water. V'achar kach, and right after that, it says, Vayitzer Hashem Elokim et Adam. At that point, it talks about the Lord God forming man. Lomar, so as to say, she'ota hashka'a, that watering of the land, that mist that watered the land, the earth, Haita letzorech priyat adam. It was necessary for the creation of human beings, right? So you have the dust, which requires water in order to be able to form it into something. Otherwise, it's just powder. And this mist, of course, watering that made it possible to form human beings. The imkain, and if this is the case, ikar hashka'at haolam, the essence, the main reason, right, for the world being watered, hu bishvil ha'adam, was on account of the human being, in order to form human beings. Ukamo hadam shebaguf heve ikar chayei ha'adam, and just as the blood that is in the body is the essence of a human life, right? They considered that blood, that's why they talk about the life blood. It's the essence of being able to stay alive, remain alive. And so this now becomes a metaphor in terms of the blood of the world. Klomar, that is to say, ikaro shel olam, that it is the essence of the world. So it seems to me that he's saying that the very essence of life here in the world, it's looking at it from a spiritual, literal, or literary perspective, are human beings. And of course, that is the way the Bible looks at human life. That human life and the development of humanity and what we do with our lives is the very essence of life here in the world. Now, obviously, from a scientific point of view, that isn't the way we would look at things. But from a literal point of view, or from or rather, I should say, a literary point of view, or from a spiritual point of view, there's great truth to that. And on the other end of it, we could also say that what human beings do to this world obviously has a tremendous effect on the viability of this world, and we see it. We see that human behavior and which is tied, of course, to human values and priorities, etc., have a tremendous effect on what happens in the natural course of events. So, going on. So trying to understand when it talks about the blood of the world, right? V'garma sorry, I want to make sure I have that part. Yes. Okay. V'garma lo chava mita. And Eve caused him death. Lefichach, and for this reason, masru mitzvat nida leisha, and for this reason, the mitzvah that involves menstruation was given to the woman. So again, it's very similar to the previous comment that we had, that there are these three mitzvot that women are specifically responsible for. The three mitzvot are chala, which is what we read about before, that is taking some of the dough, right? Because of the man being the chala of the world, right? In the same sense, the bread, and the damor, now the dam, referring to blood, and so the mitzvahs involving menstruation. And the third one is hadlakat hanerot, that is lighting Shabbos candles, bringing light into the world. And in the previous session that we had regarding this, we talked about these mitzvot as being a tikkun, that these three mitzvot give a woman this ability to set right what happened. And of course, I realized we discussed this a little bit the last time, that I realized that the sort of one's immediate reaction to this, of course, sounds very rough, but at the same time, I think that there's some thought behind all of this, and I think in some ways it's a balance, right, of the fact that women bring life into this world, bring children into this world, and of course that human life is also mortal, and those ideas, and trying to deal, I think, psychologically and spiritually with these powerful, powerful issues. So his
But I
college,
mean,
go ahead.
for men, the mitzvah of being fruitful and multiplying is for the men, and I
Correct.
don't understand why childbirth couldn't also be considered a mitzvah.
I think it is that would, and it actually is a mitzvah that falls on men, that it's for men.
Right, right. But I'm talking about the birth, not I'm talking about the process of the birth that does not fall upon men. Why that can't be considered a mitzvah. I
Maybe,
mean, even
okay, good question. So I'm thinking
I
it through.
mean
Go
having
on, Lauren.
having relations with your husband
Hmm.
and having a baby for your husband seems like should be a mitzvah.
Right. I think it is. I think it is in terms of the relationship. I know that being able to procreate is itself a mitzvah. That is something for both of them to share, but the responsibility of it falls on the man. So and I'm trying to think through, I had a thought when you were sharing what you were sharing about the nature of it. And I think the reason why it perhaps isn't a mitzvah in the same way is that if you think about the laws of challah and the laws of menstruation and the laws of lighting the candles, they're not natural processes, whereas birth, right, conception, birth, etc., all has to do with something that is a natural
Well,
process.
menses is a natural
Exactly. But the law,
process.
correct, but the laws involved in around it are not.
Well, why would there could be laws around childbirth? Why not? I mean, like if you have to purify yourself after
That's true.
menses, why
There
wouldn't
are.
you have to
That's
purify
true.
yourself after childbirth?
Well, you do. Think about it. Actually, there are laws involving that. Right.
Because I mean, I was at a conservative synagogue and it came up about
Hmm.
um childbirth or something, and I mean, the rabbi just said the mitzvah was for men, and I mean, I understand that commandment again about, being fruitful is for men, but it I can't make sense out of what you're saying in terms of why childbirth wouldn't be considered a mitzvah for women. I
Okay.
mean, if you're supposed to go to the mikveh after it, then it does have laws with it.
It does. Childbirth
And
actually
it's a
does.
natural process like menses.
Yes, yes. No, I think the issue here is that these three particular laws are considered tikkunim, whereas the laws regarding that are mentioned in the book of Leviticus, in Parshat Tazria, they talk about if a woman gives birth to a male, or a woman gives birth to a female, etc. So there are laws concerning that, but I don't know that they're considered. The point that Torah Temimah tries to make is that these are tikkunim. All right, um, they have to. There's there are issues of consequences attached to these three laws that are not directly consequences to not fulfilling the laws regarding childbirth.
I think you need to explain tikkunim a little bit better
Okay,
because
so I
if
will
you're talking
need to.
about if you're talking about the golden calf
No,
and
yeah.
what do you yeah, so what do you mean by tikkunim?
Okay, so tikkunim mean that because Eve was involved in bringing mortality into the world. Okay, that is the story of the serpent in the Garden of Eden.
Right.
These particular three, what Torah Temimah tries to point out is that these three particular laws, because as you've just pointed out, there are laws that would involve women in regards to childbirth itself, okay, that when she actually delivers. But these particular three laws, it says that if a woman is not observant about these three laws, they may have consequences of shortening her life. Okay, because of this connection to Eve. And that the point that he makes is that these laws were given, these three particular laws of challah, menstruation, and lighting the Shabbos lamps, all have to do with that particular incident, and that guard her from such things, from such a consequence. And because
Well,
they guard her, that's why they're a tikkun.
I mean,
For
I'm still not sure why childbirth wouldn't be included because, like, for instance, scientifically, not having children actually can shorten your life because it's a risk factor for ovarian and breast cancer.
Right. It's also
And
a factor in terms of the mortality of the woman because childbirth itself can be a dangerous moment for a woman.
yeah, it can be, especially when there are laws that, restrict women, but and their choices. But um, I don't understand why the act of bringing life into the world wouldn't be tikkun for the bringing mortality in the world to the world.
Hold on one second. I'm going to have to stop. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to pause the share for a moment and give me a moment and I will be back. Okay, give me a second.
David and Harlan, do,
Hey,
do you understand an answer to the question I'm asking?
Yeah, I do, but it takes a man to make the baby.
It takes both, yes.
yeah, I understand I understand the answer you're yeah, that to the question you're seeking, and yeah, but I also agree. I don't know why it's excluded. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, it still doesn't make sense. But anyway,
But
so
Harlan maybe does have a point because, okay, Mincy's, um, candle lighting, and what was the third one?
challah.
Sala, yet it does not take a man. A man doesn't have to be involved in that. So maybe that's why these are um, specifically the tikkunim mitzvot for women, because it's something women can do on their own. Maybe
Correct.
that's what maybe Harlan's point is a helpful answer for this.
Yeah,
Exactly right. That is exactly right. You're right. That's the way God sees it. Yeah.
Well, I don't. Rabbi didn't explain that yet, though. With that, another thing that comes up that I didn't bring up because it would change the subject, but the there's a current meme that people are posting on Facebook who are pro-choice, and it has to do with that line about God breathing life into Adam, and it's supposed to imply that life doesn't apply, um, that you're not like a fully living human being until you're out of the womb and breathing on your own. Or, and of course, in some cases, people are out of the womb and not breathing on their own for a while. But, I mean, it's an interesting thought. I have very mixed feelings about abortion, but it's just interesting because this has been I've currently seen it like 3 or 4 times on Rabbi,
Yes.
Harlan
Yeah.
provided a decent answer to my question.
Okay. What did he say?
He was saying that childbirth takes a man and a woman, but the 3 tikkunim mitzvot can be done independently of a man.
That's really cool. I will give. I think that's really cool. There's another issue too, and that is that men are the ones who are responsible for. In other words, a woman does not have a commandment to procreate. That the commandment of procreation refers to men, and they're the ones who have to fulfill that commandment, and that's based on what happens after Noah gets off the ark, and what is mentioned there. So that's why, in fact, and the implication is, by the way, that women are permitted to use contraception, which is very interesting and actually, in a sense, I would think progressive, given the fact that there are religions that prohibit contraception regardless of gender. But in Judaism, contraception is permitted for women. So, and it's interesting. So whether that has some implications, but I think I really like Harlan's answer. It's a really
Well, if man's has the mitzvah to procreate, which is basically to fertilize, it seems like then women using contraception would prevent the man from doing his mitzvah, which seems like would be then considered wrong
So
religiously.
very, very, very good point. So the question is raised, well, at what point have you fulfilled the mitzvah of procreation? And there's actually a discussion between Hillel and Shammai as to what it is. And essentially, I think for Shammai, it's providing 2 sons, and for Hillel, it's providing a son and a daughter. So
So it's after that it's okay?
yes, correct.
But if they do it on the first child, that's not okay?
Well, in the sense that at some point the man has to fulfill his commandment. So if he practices contraception, I mean, there are lots of factors involved as to why one might be practicing contraception, but essentially he's fulfilled his mitzvah once he's provided 2 children. Once he's had 2 children. Of course, he's welcome to have as many as he wants, or both of them, at least as many as both of them want, but or are capable. But that's considered the minimum requirement. But it's like a whole different category in terms of these specific mitzvot, that they all 3 have something in common in the sense that they're for women to, practice. And I think Harlan's answer is really good. Let's just do the little bit of, there's a very, very brief comment here from Torah Temimah at the end of this comment. And he says, Yein ma shekatov. He says, just look and see what's written, Badrasha HaKodemet, in the previous interpretation, V'tzaref lekan, and append it to here. And that's this whole area, this whole commentary that he has about the nature of the mitzvah and how he sees it, and the fact that it is actually a tikkun. So
if women can fulfill their challah duty by buying a challah from Schnucks,
yes, that's nice.
Can't men fulfill their procreation duty by adoption?
Isn't that a good interest? I don't know that it's necessarily verse, one exactly the same, but yes, I believe. I'm sure there's a deep discussion about that, but I would think that they would fulfill their obligation through adoption. An adopted child is your child, and whether or not it was fulfilled, in the natural way or not, I think, it's not what's relevant. But again, I think this stuff would take far more expertise and discussion than I'm capable, in this particular moment. It would take a study on our part to see.
Yeah, because it's just bringing up a lot more questions now, so.
No, that's okay, but I think that's the beauty of it, all right, is that it does. So let's go. I'm going to move this down to here for next time. And we can take a look if you like, at least because we have a moment to what it says here. Okay, so this is a whole different approach now to these same words for Eid Ya'aleh. And I'm just we'll work through it first and then maybe have a moment to just discuss it, but I'll try and remember to do the Torah Temimah next time. Amar Reish Lakish, said Reish Lakish, Ketiv, it states in the text, for Eid Ya'aleh min haaretz, and an aid, I'm not going to translate it right now, went up from the earth, right, or from the land. Mikevan she'ala sheven mimelamata, on account of the fact that calamity came up from the bottom, in other words, from the land, right? And that's because the word aid can also be understood as meaning calamity. Now, this is not and Torah Temimah will point this out, this is not an attempt to translate this literally, okay? It's simply something that is suggestive, right? So miyad hagashamim yordim, he's now applying this. The moment that the rains fall down, okay? So let me make sure.
So aid, that when it means witness, is that with an iron?
Wait a sec. I may be looking at the no. Yeah, aid with an iron is a witness. Yes, correct. Yes. Okay. So let me make sure I have the right. Yes. Let me see. Okay. So this is right. All right. So, okay. Forgive me. This is going in a different direction. I was actually anticipating the next comment, but it's still the idea of translating aid as calamity. So what he's saying is that the moment there was calamity on the lower, immediately the rains fall. So we'll take a look here. I'd like to do that then. It's not that long a comment. Asmachta veremes ba'alma, right? So he says that what Reish Lakish is doing here is simply as a support and an allusion alone. In other words, this isn't seen as a halachic point, but simply as a suggestive meaning that we can get out of this particular verse. Hotzi hamilah va'aid, he takes this word, the aid, this phrase va'aid, mi pishta or pshata lahorot. He takes it out of its literal meaning in order to teach a point. Ki le'yiridat geshamim, and the point that he's trying to make is that to see that rain falls, right? Tzarich rachamim merubim, a great deal of love, mercy is required. In other words, that rainfall is something that is an incredible act of love on God's part. Utfilah b'da'aga v'shivron lev, and it requires prayer with concern, worry, and heartbreak. In other words, this is something we practically are in a position of having to beg for. V'darish aid, and he interprets the word aid, milashon shever, from an understanding that it means a catastrophe. And now he gives an example from Job where the word aid here, and there it's spelt apparently with a yud, but that wouldn't really make a difference, right? Because the yud would simply be aim hakriya, it would simply be sort of a vowel in a way, right? Kamo v'aid nachon letzal'o. And that's a verse from Job, chapter 18, verse 12. Calamity is ready for him to stumble. So there's the word aid. And there are other places too where the word aid means calamity. He says, and see ahead, right? Baruch Perek Hazinu, Parshat Hazinu, at the beginning of Parsha Hazinu, of course, which is like the second to last Parsha of the Torah in Deuteronomy. So it's a long way to go down there, okay? Ba'a od rasha be'inyan zeh. Another interpretation is going to be mentioned in this regard as well. So that's that interpretation, and we still have this next ve'ed ya'aleh for next time, and that you will see how that works. And also there, it's going to be understood in the sense of a calamity. So, and with that, I will stop the share and also stop the recording. Oops, I'm going to have to do that again here.